Well, today's race at Las Vegas, at the time I'm recording this, was actually pretty damn good. Unfortunately, the finish was pretty shitastic. Let's get into it. This is the fuel. What's happening, ladies and germs? This is the PackerMan, and welcome to today's edition of The Fuel, where today we are going to be reviewing the second race of the 2020 NASCAR Cup Series schedule, the 2020 Pennzoil 400 presented by Jiffy Lube at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. And this is going to be officially our first full-fledged review of the 2020 season, because the Clash sucked ass and didn't deserve a full-fledged review, and then of course the Daytona 500, and of course ended in a damn near tragedy, and I decided to nix the review and just do a debrief instead. So this will be the first full-fledged review of 2020, and what did I think of this race? Honestly, it was a damn good race. I was on the edge of my seat for a lot of this race, and it was damn good. But that fucking finish, boy, NASCAR really screwed the pooch on the next to last caution, because we were set up to see one hell of a good finish, and they fucked it up. Because once again, they are consistently inconsistent. But, you know, what else is fucking new? But before we get into the review, it's time for our first edition of the News of the Week this year. So we really hadn't had a chance to do News of the Week the past two episodes, you know, because of, you know, all the shitastic stuff that's been happening. But we're finally going to get to do it here, and we got a lot of stuff to go over. I'm going to try to rip through this as much as humanly possible. First up, Hendrick Motorsports getting a couple of extensions with sponsorships. Napa is extending their partnership with Hendrick through the 2022 season, meaning that they're going to continue to sponsor the 9 car of Chase Elliott. And Axalta is extending their partnership with Hendrick and sponsoring the number 24 car through 2027. Damn. That's basically 8 more seasons that Axalta is going to be sponsoring Hendrick Motorsports. So that is a huge coup for Hendrick Motorsports, and as far as extending their partnership with Axalta. In contract news, in what may be the worst kept secret of this season, Kevin Harvick signed a contract extension with Stewart-Haas Racing. Like we didn't already fucking know that was going to happen. And it's going to be through 2023. Of course, Harvick is still pretty much at the top of his game, even in his early 40s. And his son basically told him that he wants Harvick to remain in racing until he's able to race him on the racetrack. So I don't know if that's actually going to happen, but at the very least, Harvick is signed with SHR through 2023, which we knew that was going to happen. And a little bit of weird news, NASCAR says they are maybe looking to implement penalties for tracks that don't have at least 70% capacity for their races. I'm not exactly sure how that's going to work out and how they're going to implement that. But the bottom line here is, from my perspective, there are certain tracks out there that don't need 2 dates because they just can't fill their fucking racetracks. Texas Motor Speedway being one of them. I mean, they used to have, you know, be able to fill, according to them, as much as 200,000 people, and now they can't even get 40,000 nowadays into that track because of the fact that A, you know, NASCAR has waned in popularity over the last 20 years, and B, the racing at Texas fucking sucks. I mean, the spring race there was a massive exception to the rule, but I mean, for by and large, the racing at Texas Motor Speedway has sucked some major ass. You know, I mean, there are times that we see decent racing there, but for the most part, the racing there just sucks. I mean, honestly, I would take one of those dates away and, you know, take it somewhere else. Honestly, they need to revive North Wilkesboro and go back there because, I mean, I mean, at full capacity, it could match what Texas Motor Speedway is doing right now, and maybe even surpass it. You know, if they have if they get it, you know, back to racing condition, you know, and all that shit, and management cost and upkeep costs would be would be relatively light compared to Texas Motor Speedway. So, I don't know. I don't know how NASCAR is going to implement this, but, you know, it is what it is. We'll have to wait and see how that goes. But, next up on the docket is the free agent list. There are quite a few drivers that are in their contract years in the Cup Series. As I wait for the damn list to pull up, here we go. There are currently 9 drivers that are either in one-year contracts or are in their contract years with their current teams. You have 2 of the Penske boys, Brad Keselowski and Ryan Blaney. Clint Boyer with Stuart Haas is in his last year. Of course, Gibbs has Eric Jones in his last year with the team. Matt DiBenedetto is only on a 1-year deal with the Wood brothers, but if he has runs like we saw today, which we'll get to in a bit, I think they might sign an extension with him for sure. Corey LaJoie with Go Fast. Kyle Larson is in his contract year with Ganassi. He's pretty much been with Ganassi since the beginning. Will he decide to stay with Ganassi? I'm not sure. Bubba Wallace is in his contract year with Richard Petty Motorsports, and Alex Bowman is in his contract year with Hendricks. So, I mean, Bowman, he showed some. I mean, I honestly thought he was going to win the race today if it weren't for, you know, the caution that we're going to be talking about that was full of fucking bullshit. But I think Bowman's. I mean, he showed some real good racing prowess today in the Pennzoil 400. But will he remain in that 88 car? I mean, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Of course, with Jimmy Johnson retiring at the end of this season, the real question is who's going to be taking over that 48 car, because, you know, you have 9 drivers that are in their they're in their contract year. So it's like, who is going to take over the 48 next year? That's the big thing. But now we get to the more serious stuff. What a shitastic couple weeks it's been for Ryan Newman. Basically 4 days before the Daytona 500, Ryan and his wife Chrissy basically decided to file for divorce. Him and Chrissy basically released a statement that said, after 16 years of marriage, Chrissy and I have decided to amicably separate. We will continue to jointly raise our girls while remaining friends and continuing to work together supporting Rescue Ranch. Thank you for the years of support and friendship. We ask that our daughter's privacy be respected at this time. Of course, after, you know, what happened in the Daytona 500, I don't know if this brought them back together or what the deal was, but you know, after the Daytona 500, he was reported as in a serious condition, but as it turned out, he only suffered a head injury. He didn't really disclose what that head injury was, but said that he was receiving treatment for it. And he released a statement earlier today, and it's a pretty big statement. You'll see it on your screen. So I'm trying to open it up for myself so that way I can read it. So here is Ryan Newman's statement regarding what happened at the end of the Daytona 500 and the injuries that he suffered. He says, I'm sorry that I can't be at the track in person, but I asked Steve to take a moment to express my sincere appreciation and gratitude for all the support that was shown last week to both me and my family. The outpouring of emotion from not only the NASCAR community but across the country has been truly humbling. I want to personally thank everyone, including the man upstairs, for their support, encouragement, and the numerous offers of assistance. We always say that the NASCAR community is one big family, and never has that been more evident to me than after seeing this family rally together and provide the comfort and support that has been shown to my family and me over the past few days. The calls and visits from the NASCAR executives and my friends and competitors has been truly uplifting. I want to thank everyone involved in my care, especially the staff at Halifax Medical Center, where I'm convinced I received the best care available. I'm confident the efforts of each of those trained professionals played a major role in where I'm sitting today. And to the entire NASCAR organization led by Jim France, thanks for being by my side the entire time. You truly stepped up to support me unconditionally when it mattered most. And here's the second part of the statement. Most importantly, I have to thank the guys back at the Roush Fenway Racing Shop that built me a car, not only fast enough to lead the final seconds of the Daytona 500, but strong enough to do its job under great distress, allowing me to survive such an accident. Yeah, because he basically got hit driver's side at over almost 200 miles an hour. And the fact that he not only survived that accident, but basically walked away with just, a mild head injury is just crazy. I am truly indebted, however you say that, to each of you, and it is unlikely I will ever be able to properly express to you how much the diligent effort with which you conduct your craftsmanship has affected me and my family. I hope you took pride in the photograph of me walking out of the hospital hand in hand with my daughters on Wednesday. Thank you. I can't wait to get back in your race car. I was fortunate to avoid any internal organ damage or broken bones. I did sustain a head injury for which I'm currently being treated. The doctors have been pleased with my progression over the last few days. Again, I want to thank each of you, from my partners, teammates, and competitors, and each and every fan across the country. Thank you everyone for the unparalleled concern and unwavering support, and to the media who has acted with such respect and class during this time. I have spoken with Jack Roush, and he has assured me that the number 6 car will be waiting and ready for my return. I'm looking forward to getting behind the wheel and battling for another race win and the Roush Fenway Ford. So there is he never really gave any timetable for when he was going to be returning to the 6 car. But hopefully, if the head injury is not as serious as it could have been, then he might be back behind the wheel of the 6 car before too long. And the real question was, would he be able to get a medical exemption to get into the playoff? Considering in past history, they kind of set a precedent with Kyle Busch in 2015, and then I think Tony Stewart the year after, where they did give him medical exemptions. I think they'll do the same with Ryan Newman. He just had to be in the top 30 in points and win a race, basically, which would be the only way he would be able to get into the playoff. And that's basically all that has happened here this week in the NASCAR world. Lots of shit going on. Oh, by the way, Ross Chastain stepping into the 6 car probably for the foreseeable future. He's typically a Chevy driver, but he did receive permission to drive the 6 car in relief of Ryan Newman, probably for the next couple weeks, I would say. So that's what's going on in the... Oh, and one other thing, Daytona 500 results before we get into this review. Since I never did it after the Daytona 500, since it was more of a debrief than anything else, here are the top 10 finishers for the Daytona 500. Of course, Denny Hamlin won his 2nd consecutive Daytona 500 and 3rd overall. He led 79 laps, earned 50 total points and 6 playoff points. Ryan Blaney, of course, got beat to the line in a photo finish, the 2nd closest finish in 500 history. Chris Buescher comes home with a 3rd place finish. The running order for these first 2 races is really wacky. Of course, the Daytona 500, Chris Buescher finishing 3rd, David Reagan in 4th on a 1-race deal coming out of retirement temporarily. Kevin Harvick 5th, Clint Bowyer 6th, Brendan Gaughan in 7th, Corey LaJoie in 8th. Ryan Newman, despite his devastating crash, wound up finishing 9th in the 500, and then Kyle Larson rounded out the top 10. And those are the Daytona 500 results. With all that out of the way, let's get into the race review itself. So, 2020 Pennzoil 400 review. Here are all my notes. And I actually have quite a few notes here. So let's get into it. So qualifying was rained out due to rain. Was canceled due to rain, I should say. Yes, it rained on Saturday night in Las Vegas. And it even postponed the Xfinity race, which was won by Chase Briscoe. Of course, the truck race was won by Kyle Busch. Go fucking figure, right? But anywho, stages broke down like this. Stages 1 and 2, 80 laps. Stage 3, 107 laps. Same as usual. So, the qualifying order, or the starting grid, would have been determined by owner points. In which case, Kyle Busch would have started from pole, but he, Denny Hamlin, and Christopher Bell all had tech inspection issues, which sent them to the rear, and it's also going to, and they're also going to be penalized 10 driver points and owner points. Which, let's be honest here, for those guys, other than maybe Christopher Bell, that's not really going to matter all that fucking much. So Kevin Harvick would have started third, but he moves up. Since Kyle Busch moves to the back, the entire inside row moves up one. So Kevin Harvick starts from the pole. Technically, it wasn't really the pole since the qualifying was rained out, but you get what I mean. We didn't even get through the first lap without a caution, and that was because Daniel Suarez basically stalled at the start of the race. The car wouldn't get going. Daniel Suarez just has no luck whatsoever right now. I mean, he didn't even qualify for the Daytona 500, and then here his engine decides to say, "Oh, I'm just going to take a break." I mean, they did get it refired, but he was several laps down before the race even started. He's just had no luck whatsoever. What a horrible start to the season for Daniel Suarez. So Harvick leads on the restart. Joey Logano gets by for the lead. We saw that a lot of lead changes on the restarts. While Harvick, Truex, and Larson go 3 wide for second, and we saw that a lot on the restarts too. These guys were nuts on these restarts. William Byron challenges Larson for 5th. Then we get our first pure lead change on lap 12, and Kevin Harvick takes the lead back from Logano. Truex and Logano go side by side for second, and right as this battle was beginning to shape up, Fox goes to a fucking commercial break. Fucking typical. And I've already, known in the past how much I fucking hate that shit. And I even tweeted at them, stop with that shit. It's fucking stupid. Anywho, Larson goes Tokyo drifting through turn 3 and somehow hangs on to it. Elliott starts challenging Truex for 3rd. Truex gets by Logano for 2nd on lap 25, and then of course they have a second caution on lap 26, which was the competition caution that they usually have when it rains really heavily. Everyone comes to pit road for service, and Harvick wins the race off pit road. So Harvick leads on the restart. Blaney goes 3 wide with Elliott and Logano for the 3rd position. Harvick and Truex go side by side for the lead for several laps before Harvick pulls ahead. Logano and Elliott battle for 3rd, while Larson nearly slides into Blaney off turn 4. Blaney and Elliott battle for 4th for several laps, with Elliott winning out. All 3 of the Penske boys were basically 4th through 6th, and the 22 and 12 were sponsored by Pennzoil this week. So Pennzoil cars trying to win a Pennzoil sponsored race. Byron starts reporting a vibration in the car. Might have had some concerns with tires, because they were wearing a bit at the beginning of the race because there wasn't any rubber on the track because of the rain, but the wear did start improving as time went on. Elliott gets by Truex for 2nd on the outside in turn 4 and begins running down Harvick for the lead, and basically blows by him for the lead off of turn 2. So the big theme for the majority of this race was Kevin Harvick had a very strong short run car, would go great off the start, but then the performance would just fall off a cliff from the middle to the late portion of the run, while guys like Chase Elliott and Martin Truex Jr. had great long run cars, especially Chase Elliott. He had a great long run car in this case. And considering the history, the past couple of races at Las Vegas, long green flag runs were basically the norm. Although, wasn't really the case in this race. So we had our second pure lead change on lap 67, with Chase Elliott taking over the lead. Truex gets by Harvick for second as Harvick fades late in stage number 1. Ross Chastain is in 10th position near the end of stage 1 in relief of Ryan Newman, so a good start for him. Kez was also falling back big time at the end of the stage, and Chase Elliott wins stage number 1. Pretty decent start to the race. Everyone comes in for service, and Elliott wins the race off of pit road. Stage number 2, 80 laps. Chase Elliott leads the start of stage 2. Harvick bowls through on the inside for the race lead, while everyone else goes 3 wide behind him. Crazy ass restart. Johnson moves up to 5th past Ryan Blaney. Johnson looked really good all race long, pretty much. I mean, he had a pretty good car in practice, and it pretty much showed in the race. Blaney and Byron go by Johnson for 5th and 6th. Then we have our third pure lead change on lap 103 when Chase Elliott gets by Harvick. Truex gets by Harvick for 2nd, so this was about the point in the run where Harvick's car started fading really fast. Logano and Blaney start fighting really hard for 4th. Another thing that was pretty evident in this race, there was a lot of side-by-side racing. Like, you know, there were times when these guys would race side-by-side for like 2 to 3 laps. It was pretty fucking crazy, but awesome at the same time. Bubba Wallace nudges Christopher Bell in turn 3, and Christopher Bell somehow hangs on to that car. Like, that car should have been in the wall. Now, there would be another instance later on, which we're going to get to in a bit, where he does lose the car and hits the wall, but in this case, I don't know how the hell he managed to hang on to it. Bell and Chastain kick off green flag pit stops on lap 118. Elliott pits from the lead on lap 124. Stenhouse and Austin Dillon are fighting it out for the lead because they were basically going at it for the lead during green flag pit stops, so they were on even footing. Dillon managed to beat Stenhouse to the line to lead a lap, so that's our 4th pure lead change on lap 127, and then he comes in a lap later on pit stops. Truex manages to get out ahead of Elliott on the pit stops. Stenhouse stays out really long on the old tires, hoping for a caution. Elliott gets by Truex for 3rd as Stenhouse and John Hunter Nemechek stay out for a bit. Stenhouse finally pits from the lead on lap 145. John Hunter Nemechek came in a few laps earlier, so Elliott reassumes the lead. Truex stays with Elliott for the race lead. Logano by Harvick for 5th. Truex and Elliott split Quinn Houff as they fight for the lead. Truex went to the inside, Elliott to the outside. So Truex actually had a run on him, but couldn't quite get to him. Hamlin, who was really struggling in this race, that was the other thing that was a huge surprise, was the fact that Denny Hamlin, he was struggling all day long. He couldn't even get inside the top. He could hardly stay inside the top 20. I mean, from winning the Daytona 500 a week ago to barely even staying in the top 20 in this race. Crazy. He was fighting hard to stay on the lead lap in this case as Blaney battles Truex for 2nd. And then we get our 3rd caution on lap 160, right at the stage 2 finish, when Christopher Bell gets loose off of turn 2 and smacks the wall. He wasn't out of the race, but it pretty much fucked his car up for the rest of the day. So Hamlin goes a lap down, but he does get the free pass. And Chase Elliott wins stage number 2 under caution. So everyone comes in for service. Truex wins the race off of pit road, but he has to come back in because the crew feared that they didn't get the lug nuts tight on the left side tires. And that was pretty much downhill from there for Truex. So Ryan Blaney leads on the start of stage number 3. Logano takes the lead as they swarm behind them, which was pretty crazy. And then we got our 4th caution right away on lap 167 when John Hunter Nemechek spins in turn 2. Doesn't hit anything though and keeps going. So Logano leads on the restart this time. Harvick gets around the outside of Logano and takes over the lead, but then Joey Logano gets back by him 1 lap later for a 5th pure lead change on lap 173. Blaney and Harvick make some contact off of turn 4. Then caution number 5 on lap 177. Truex hits the wall after cutting down a tire, which resulted from the fenders getting pushed in after contact with the wall a little bit earlier. Doesn't take much. I mean, it didn't look like a whole lot, but it pushed the fender on the tire enough to where it basically cut through the tire like a hot knife through butter. You know, and that's with these fenders as close to the tires as humanly possible as they can get them. You know, for downforce reasons, it doesn't take much to cut a tire down nowadays. So half the field comes in under this caution. So Logano leads on the restart. Johnson pushes Blaney out into the lead, with Logano getting drop kicked back to 5th. Elliott gets up to the 3rd position, and then Kyle Busch finds his way into the top 10 for the first time, up in 7th. Harvick gets by Blaney for the lead off turn 4, so we have our 6th pure lead change on lap 184. So Harvick of course with the good early run car. Logano and Elliott fighting hard for 3rd, with Johnson and Bowman in tow. Elliott gets by Logano for the 3rd position. Blaney with a nice diamond move in turns 1 and 2, where he started up high but then cut it back down low and got a great run off of turn 2 and just blows by Harvick for the lead for a 7th pure lead change on lap 200. Elliott gets by Harvick for 2nd, and then Elliott just barely gets to the inside of Blaney going into turn 1. Initially we thought that they had actually made contact, but then from another angle on the inside of turn 1 and 2, it turned out that there wasn't any contact whatsoever. It was just that it was really close, but the reason why Blaney bobbled a little bit is because Elliott was pushing, you know, the air onto his rear spoiler, and that was causing Blaney's car to get a little bit loose, but there was never actually any contact between them. So Elliott gets the lead for 8th pure lead change on lap 205. Eric Almirola kicks off green flex pit stops with 59 laps to go. Logano gets by Harvick for the 3rd position. Kez and Byron move up to 4th and 5th. They had pitted on the previous caution and they had fresher tires than anyone else. Byron gets by Keselowski for the 4th position. Elliott pits from the lead with 50 laps to go, and then he would cause the next caution that would basically turn this race on its head. On lap 220, 6th caution of the day, when he loses a left rear tire when the valve stem gets knocked out of it and spins in turn 1. That pretty much ends his shot at the win after winning the first 2 stages. And this is in the middle of green flag pit stops. Only 3 cars were remaining on the lead lap at this point. Ricky Stenhouse, John Hunter Nemechek, and Ryan Preece. They all stayed out during the green flag stops and got the caution they needed. Ryan Blaney was the first car 1 lap down, so he got the free pass. And everyone else basically had to take the wave around. Unfortunately for Ryan Preece, something broke on the car because they let the car down and it just didn't go. So they had to push him to the garage, which is a tough break considering, you know, the big break that he got with that caution. Probably a transmission breaking or a rear axle or something like that. So Ricky Stenhouse Jr. leads on the restart in the 47 car. And I thought, oh man, this is going to be crazy. Logano gets the lead on the restart. The restart was pretty crazy, but there wasn't any wrecks or anything like that. So Byron and Kez make contact, fighting for 6th. Harvick is all over Logano for the lead, but is not able to get around him. Johnson scrapes the wall off turn 2, but evidently it wasn't enough to cut a tire down, which was fortunate for him. Byron gets by Kez for 5th position. And then Alex Bowman from out of nowhere is the fastest car on the racetrack in this last run of the race. I mean, he, at this point, with 20 laps to go, he was 3 seconds behind the leader. And he was running him down. I was like, oh my god, dude. Harvick and Blaney fight hard for the 2nd position. Bowman gets by Stenhouse for 4th. Byron follows suit. Blaney catches Logano for the lead. And Bowman is just 1.5 seconds back. And I'm thinking, oh my god, Bowman could steal this race. So Blaney gets by Logano for the lead. Logano went up high and Blaney went down low. And Blaney was able to get a good run through turns 3 and 4 and takes the lead away. Our 9th pure lead change of the day on lap 255, 12 laps from the finish. And then Bowman challenges Logano for 2nd and blows by him for that position. And he's got 8 laps to catch Ryan Blaney. And as fast as that 88 car was in that last run of race, I was thinking, oh my god, this is going to be one hell of a finish. And then NASCAR completely fucks it up. They throw the 7th caution of the day on lap 261 when Ross Chastain spins off of turn 2. This is one of those cases where throwing the caution was completely unnecessary. Yes, Chastain lost it off of turn 2, but he had spun out of the way, down to the apron. There wasn't really that much smoke. He had already spun down to the apron. He got straightened out. He did not hit the wall. There was no debris on the racetrack. They could have kept this one going, considering, you know, it's late in the race and we had a great finish lined up between Ryan Blaney and Alex Bowman. You know, two guys who really need a victory to really get their 2020 season going and perhaps, you know, extend their contracts with their current teams. But no, NASCAR decides to throw the fucking yellow, and it sets up this last restart, and it's just like, and considering how this race ended, it was just a piss poor fucking decision. And evidently I'm not the only one who thinks so. You know, of course you have the assholes in this fan base that are just like, haters are going to hate. You know, you people can shut the fuck up, honestly. You know, we're allowed to dislike a finish for a certain reason if we fucking want to. And I'm certainly allowed because I'm reviewing the fucking race and I'll decide what I like and what I don't like. And you have no dictation over that, so stick it straight up your fucking ass. But Logano decides to stay out while Ryan Blaney and Alex Bowman decide to come in for tires. As it turned out, there were like 7 cars who stayed out, and then there was a couple cars that only took 2 tires, so it was like, well, that's it for Blaney and Bowman. So Logano leads on the restart. It was not actually an official green-white checkered because they were restarting the race on lap 266. So it was not an official overtime. So DiBenedetto makes a very bold move to the inside of William Byron, who also stayed out. Makes heavy contact with them, which knocks the fender in on Bowman's tire. And he has a massive tire rub. But DiBenedetto takes over the second position. I'm thinking, wow, DiBenedetto might actually have a shot to, if he can get to Logano, he has a shot to get that first career win. Unfortunately, that would not be the case because the 8th and final caution comes out on lap 267. They were beating and banging all over each other. They were 5 wide at some points. And eventually led to John Hunter Nemechek spinning on the front stretch to bring out the final caution of the race. And there were several people with, you know, fender rubs, you know, and all that shit. And since Logano had taken the white flag, the next flag ends the race, whether it be the caution or the checkered. And Joey Logano ends up winning the Pennzoil 400 for the 2nd consecutive year. Not gonna lie, I am not a fan of Joey Logano whatsoever. So, oh, what a shit way to end this race. Fantastic race, but what a shitbag finish that was. I mean, there was no need to throw that next to last caution for Ross Chastain's spin. There is no fucking excuse for that. You know, and we could have had a great finish between Blaney and Bowman, and NASCAR in their usual consistently inconsistent ways, you know, fucks the whole thing up. There was literally no need to throw that caution. None whatsoever. You know, but it is what it is. Notable finishers, which we're going to get to that with the running order. So, yeah, let's do that. But yeah, this race was fucking fantastic, honestly. Really good racing all around. It's just that finish that was such a buzzkill finish. It really was. So, here are the top 10 finishers for the Pennzoil 400. Joey Logano getting the win. The luckiest fucking man in Las Vegas. You know, and NASCAR even released a video entitled Logano. I think it was something like Logano with all the luck in Vegas or some shit like that, which was pretty much the case. I mean, he had pretty much lost the race in the last run, and it was only because he stayed out that he ended up winning the damn thing. led 54 laps, earned the 5 playoff points. Matt DiBenedetto matches his best career finish. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Finishes third. Led 30 laps, although that was under green flag pit stops. But he didn't really live up to his nickname today, which was kind of surprising. Austin Dillon finishing in the 4th position. Jimmy Johnson in the 5th position. Bubba Wallace in 6th. Great run for him. Brad Keselowski, Kevin Harvick, Kyle Larson, and then Ty Dillon round out the top 10. What a weird top 10. First 2 races of this year have had weird ass top 10s. So, point standings after 2 of 36 races. And the top 10 in points right now. I know it's just 2 races in, but it still looks weird. Ryan Blaney, despite all his issues, is the points leader. By issues, I mean, here's the other crazy thing. In the first 2 races of the season, he has indirectly lost both races this year because of the 6th car. I mean, of course, he accidentally wrecked the 6th car in the Daytona 500, and he lost all that momentum, which gave the win to Hamlin in a photo finish. And then in this race, the 6 indirectly costs him the win yet again when he spins out, causing that caution. So that's twice in 2 weeks that 6 cars cost the 12 team the victory. But he's still the points leader regardless. Joey Logano moves up to 2nd. Kevin Harvick 3rd. Kyle Larson 4th. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is 5th in the point standings in the 47 car. And despite his issue today, Chase Elliott is 6th. Austin Dillon is 7th. Chris Buescher is 8th. Denny Hamlin 9th. Of course, he's locked into the playoff. Matt DiBenedetto in 10th. Jimmy Johnson 11th. Bubba Wallace in 12th. Clint Boyer 13th. Alex Bowman, Corey LaJoie, and Martin Truex Jr. Those are your top 16. And then on the outside looking in the top 20, Eric Almirola, John Hunter Nemechek, Brad Keselowski, and Eric Jones. And those are your top 20 in the point standings after 2 races. So, my final rating for the 2020 Pennzoil 400. This was a damn good race. It really was. And if we would have seen that finish between Blaney and Bowman, I think I probably would have given this race a 9 out of 10. But because NASCAR decided to throw the yellow and completely ruin the finish of this race, the final rating loses a point. It would have been a 9 out of 10, but it loses a point because of the Shitastic finish. So it will get an 8 out of 10. We had 24 total lead changes today. 9 of those were pure lead changes. So as far as the pure lead change count, it matches the total from last year's Pennzoil 400. And it was actually 1 more lead change than the Daytona 500. Daytona 500 this year had 23 total lead changes. I don't know how many pure lead changes were in that race because I didn't bother watching the full race after the fact to count it all, because I wasn't reviewing it anyway, so it didn't really matter. But yeah, it had 24 lead changes in this race today, 9 of them pure. So good race. It's just that finish leaves a lot to be desired. NASCAR really fucked the finish up yet again. Not the first time they've done it, and it won't be the last, I'll tell you that much. So that's going to do it for this week here on The Fuel. Next week we go to Auto Club. And then after that we go to Phoenix, and that will complete the West Coast swing for 2020. So thank you very much for watching, and until next time, this is the PackerMan signing out. Bye. You better like and subscribe or face the consequences. You have been warned.